5 years had passed since the Kethvar conquered Earth, and Sam Rodriguez still remembered the day they put the metal device in his head. The neural implant was supposed to make him obedient and compliant, but something had gone wrong during the installation. He could feel the device trying to control his thoughts, but his mind fought back every day. The mining world of Kepler 442b was a harsh place with red dirt and purple skies. Sam worked 12-hour shifts, digging rare metals from deep underground tunnels. The Kethvar guards watched the human workers through cameras and sensors, but they had grown lazy over the years. They believed their technology made rebellion impossible. Amy Parker worked alongside Sam in the mines, and she had the same problem with her implant. The device was supposed to suppress human creativity and independent thinking, but Amy's engineering mind kept finding ways around the controls. She had learned to hide her thoughts and pretend to be the perfect slave while secretly planning resistance. Danny Clark had been a fighter pilot before the invasion, and now he operated mining equipment under alien supervision. His implant had malfunctioned during a tunnel collapse 2 years ago, and since then he could think clearly again. The three humans had found each other slowly and carefully, building a network of others whose implants didn't work properly. The resistance cell on Kepler 442b started small, with just a dozen workers who could think freely. They learned to communicate through hand signals and hidden messages scratched into mine walls. Sam taught them basic military tactics, while Amy showed them how to sabotage alien equipment without getting caught. Back on Earth, the situation was different, but no less desperate. The planet had become the regional headquarters for the Kethvar Empire, and millions of aliens now lived in human cities. Dr. Helen Brooks had managed to hide in the ruins of MIT when Boston fell, and she spent 5 years studying captured alien technology. Helen discovered that the neural implants weren't perfect. They worked by suppressing certain brain functions, but human minds were more adaptable than the Kethvar realized. Under the right conditions, the implants could be reversed or even reprogrammed to work in humanity's favor. The former president, Karen Matthews, had survived the initial invasion by hiding in a secret bunker system under Washington, D.C. She took the code name Phoenix and began organizing resistance cells across the occupied territories. Her network grew slowly as more humans learned to hide their free thoughts from the alien monitors. Karen's biggest challenge was communication between different resistance groups. The Kethvar monitored all electronic signals and could detect unauthorized transmissions instantly. She solved this problem by using old-fashioned methods like dead drops and coded messages hidden in routine slave reports. Sam's group on Kepler 442b made their first major breakthrough when Amy discovered how to disable a mining robot without triggering alarms. She found that the alien machines had safety protocols that could be exploited by someone who understood their programming. Within weeks, mining equipment across the planet began breaking down at suspicious rates. The Kethvar garrison commander became frustrated as productivity dropped throughout his sector. Equipment failures were increasing and work quotas were being missed regularly. He ordered more surveillance, but the humans had learned to act perfectly normal when being watched directly. Danny developed a way to signal between different mining sites using reflected sunlight from polished metal surfaces. The simple code allowed resistance cells to coordinate their activities across vast distances without using any technology the aliens could detect. Soon, sabotage operations were happening simultaneously across multiple continents. Helen made a crucial discovery in her hidden laboratory under the MIT ruins. She found that the neural implants could be removed safely if the procedure was done correctly. More importantly, she learned how to reprogram them to enhance human abilities rather than suppress them. The devices that were meant to enslave humanity could be turned into tools of liberation. Karen received Helen's research through a network of couriers who traveled between Earth's major cities disguised as routine maintenance workers. The information was copied and spread to resistance cells across 12 different worlds where humans were being held as slaves. For the first time since the invasion, there was real hope. The liberation process had to be done carefully because removing or altering an implant without proper preparation could kill the subject. Helen trained a select group of resistance medics who then traveled secretly to other worlds. Sam's cell on Kepler 442b was chosen as the first test site for the Liberation procedure. Amy volunteered to be the first subject for implant removal. She lay still in a hidden cave while Helen's trained medic carefully disabled the device in her brain. The procedure took 3 hours, and Amy remained unconscious for 2 days afterward. When she finally woke up, her mind felt clearer and sharper than it had since before the invasion. The success on Kepler 442b led to more liberation procedures across the human slave populations. Each freed human became a teacher who could help others hide their returning independence from alien surveillance. The resistance network grew exponentially as more minds were freed from technological control. Sam noticed changes in the liberated humans that went beyond just freedom of thought. Amy's engineering abilities seemed enhanced, and she could understand alien technology in ways that should have been impossible. Danny's reflexes became faster, and his spatial awareness improved dramatically. Something about the liberation process was changing humans in unexpected ways. The Kethvar began to notice unusual patterns in their slave populations, but they couldn't identify the source of the problems. Equipment failures continued to increase, and worker productivity kept declining. Some garrison commanders reported that their human slaves seemed more alert and intelligent than before, but higher command dismissed these reports as imagination. Karen coordinated resistance activities from her bunker as reports came in from across the occupied territories. Human slaves were waking up from their technological stupor and remembering what freedom meant. The neural implants that were supposed to guarantee permanent obedience were becoming the tools of humanity's resurrection. The stage was set for something the Kethvar had never encountered in their long history of conquest. They had faced desperate, final battles and kamikaze attacks from dying civilizations, but they had never dealt with a species that could adapt and evolve under pressure. Humanity was about to show them what happened when you tried to chain a race that refused to stay down. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the orbital defense station watching Earth turn slowly below him. The blue marble looked peaceful that morning in 2157, but peace was about to end forever. His coffee cup shook in his hand as massive shadows fell across the planet. Ships the size of cities had appeared without warning, blocking out the sun in some places. The communication array crackled to life with panicked voices from every corner of Earth. Military bases reported unknown vessels in their airspace. Civilian populations pointed cameras at the sky, sharing videos of the impossible sight. Jake had been a captain for 15 years, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. Dr. Lisa Carter ran onto the bridge carrying a tablet filled with readings that made no sense. The energy signatures coming from the alien ships were beyond anything human science had ever recorded. She had spent her whole career studying theoretical physics, and now theory had become terrifying reality. General Pete Williams' voice came through the speakers from Earth Command. His words were calm, but Jake could hear fear underneath. All military units were ordered to defensive positions. Earth's newest faster-than-light ships were being scrambled, but everyone knew they were vastly outnumbered. The largest alien vessel moved closer to Earth and began broadcasting on every frequency. The voice that spoke was cold and mechanical, but the words were translated perfectly into every human language. High Commander Zexthol introduced himself as the leader of the Kethvar Empire. He said his people had conquered 17 star systems, and now Earth would join them. Jake listened as the alien commander explained that humans had 2 choices. They could surrender and serve as workers in the expanding empire, or they could resist and face complete destruction. The broadcast ended, with coordinates where Earth leaders could come to discuss terms of surrender. Lisa stared at her readings and shook her head. The alien ships used technology that was hundreds of years ahead of human science. Their energy shields could probably stop anything Earth could throw at them. Their weapons could turn cities to glass in seconds. Resistance seemed impossible, but Jake knew humans well enough to know they would try anyway. The first shots came from Earth's lunar defense platforms. Massive railguns fired projectiles at near light speed toward the alien fleet. The rounds struck invisible barriers around the ships and dissolved into harmless light. The Kethvar response was swift and brutal. Beams of purple energy lanced down from orbit, and the lunar platforms simply vanished. Jake ordered his station to open fire even though he knew it was hopeless. Every weapon they had was aimed at the nearest alien ship and fired at once. Missiles, nuclear warheads, and energy. Cannons all struck the vessel's shields and had no effect whatsoever. The alien ship didn't even seem to notice the attack. Cities began falling within hours. New York, London, Tokyo, and Moscow were the first targets. The aliens didn't destroy them completely, but used some kind of stunning weapon that left millions of people unconscious in the streets. Transport ships the size of stadiums landed in each city and began loading unconscious humans like cargo. Pete Williams coordinated what resistance he could from his bunker deep under the Rocky Mountains. Fighter pilots reported that their weapons were useless against the alien technology. Ground forces watched helplessly as purple beams from the sky left their equipment dead and their soldiers stunned. Within 12 hours, most of Earth's major military installations had fallen silent. Jake's orbital station was one of the last holdouts. He watched through telescopes as the aliens methodically captured every human settlement they could find. The transport ships were already leaving Earth's atmosphere filled with human prisoners. Lisa worked frantically at her computers trying to understand how the alien technology functioned, but progress was slow. An alien boarding ship approached Jake's station, and he knew their time was up. He ordered his crew to destroy all computers and research data rather than let it fall into enemy hands. The station's self-destruct sequence began counting down as the aliens cut through the outer hull, with tools that made metal flow like water. Tall gray beings in dark armor entered the station's bridge, just as the countdown reached 0. Jake reached for the final trigger, but one of the aliens pointed a device at him and suddenly he couldn't move. His body was frozen, but his mind remained clear as he watched the aliens shut down the self-destruct system with ease. The lead alien spoke in perfect English, explaining that resistance was pointless. The Kethvar had conquered dozens of species, and humans were just another addition to their empire. Jake would be taken to a processing center where a neural implant would make him compliant and useful. Lisa was captured along with the rest of the crew, and they were all herded onto the alien transport ship. Jake looked back at Earth one last time as they left orbit. The blue marble was now surrounded by a fleet of alien vessels, and streams of transport ships carried millions of humans away from their homeworld. The transport ship's interior was filled with rows of unconscious humans from every nation on Earth. Soldiers, farmers, teachers, and children all lay still in the alien holding cells. Jake realized that within days the Kethvar had captured more humans than had ever been moved in all of history. Earth's population was being harvested like a crop. As the ship jumped to faster than light speed, Jake wondered if this was the end of human freedom. The aliens seemed to have thought of everything, and their technology was so advanced that resistance appeared impossible. But somewhere in the back of his mind, a small flame of defiance still burned. The Kethvar might have won the first battle, but they didn't understand humans as well as they thought they did. Amy Parker stared at the alien computer terminal and felt something impossible happening in her mind. 3 weeks had passed since Helen's medic had removed her neural implant, and every day brought new discoveries about what she could do. The Kethvar computer system that should have been completely foreign to her somehow made perfect sense. Her fingers moved across the alien interface without conscious thought, and data streams flowed through her awareness like she had been born to understand them. Amy realized she wasn't just reading the computer files but actually communicating directly with the system itself. The liberation process had changed her brain in ways that nobody could have predicted. Sam Rodriguez watched Amy work and felt his own enhanced abilities growing stronger each day. His tactical awareness had expanded beyond normal human limits, and he could sense the movement and mood of every person in the mining complex. The neural implant that was meant to control his mind had somehow rewired it for greater capability instead. Dr. Tony Mitchell had been a theoretical physicist before the invasion and now worked as a slave in the power generation facility on Kepler 442b. His implant had been removed just 2 days ago, but already he was experiencing changes that defied scientific explanation. He could feel energy patterns around him and somehow influence the flow of electricity through alien machinery. Danny Clark discovered his own new abilities during a routine maintenance flight of alien aircraft. His enhanced spatial perception allowed him to understand the vehicle's systems instinctively, and he found he could pilot craft that should have required years of training. The implant removal hadn't just freed his mind, but had unlocked potential that normal humans didn't possess. The liberation process was spreading across all 12 worlds where humans were held as slaves. Each freed person developed different enhanced abilities based on their natural talents and interests. Engineers could interface with alien technology, while soldiers gained tactical awareness that bordered on precognition. Scientists could manipulate energy and matter in ways that seemed almost magical. Maria Santos had been a logistics coordinator before the invasion, and now she organized the largest resistance network in the galaxy. Her liberation had enhanced her ability to see patterns and connections across vast amounts of information. From her base on Proxima Centauri b, she could coordinate simultaneous operations across multiple star systems with precision that amazed even her. The Kethvar were beginning to notice that something was seriously wrong with their human slave population. Equipment failures had increased by 300% over the past 6 months, and productivity had dropped to less than half normal levels. More disturbing were reports that human slaves were somehow accessing computer systems that should have been completely secure. Garrison Commander Veltar studied the reports from Kepler 442b and felt growing unease about the situation. His sensors showed that mining equipment was being sabotaged by methods that his engineers couldn't explain. The humans appeared to be working normally, but their output had become completely unreliable. Amy made her most important discovery when she accessed the main database of the Kethvar regional network. Hidden in the encrypted files was the location of every human slave camp and the coordinates of the alien homeworld itself. She downloaded everything she could find before the system detected her intrusion and locked her out. The information spread through the resistance network like wildfire. For the first time since the invasion, humans knew exactly where they were, being held, and how many of them were still alive. More importantly, they learned about the structure of the Kethvar Empire and identified its most vulnerable points. Tony Mitchell used his energy manipulation abilities to overload the power grid on Kepler 442b, causing a complete blackout that lasted for 6 hours. During the darkness, Sam's teams liberated 50 more humans from the processing centers, while Danny's pilots stole 3 alien transport ships. The coordinated operation was executed with precision that should have been impossible for slave laborers. The pattern repeated across all the occupied worlds, as liberated humans used their enhanced abilities to strike at alien infrastructure. Communication networks were infiltrated, power systems were disrupted, and transport schedules were thrown into chaos. The Kethvar found themselves dealing with a level of coordinated resistance they had never encountered before. Maria Santos received confirmation that resistance cells were active on every world where humans were held. Her enhanced pattern recognition allowed her to see the perfect moment for a coordinated uprising. She sent coded messages through the Liberation Network, calling for simultaneous rebellions across 7 planets. Jake Morrison had spent 5 years as a slave on the industrial world of Tau Ceti, but his liberation 2 months ago had restored his military leadership abilities along with enhanced tactical awareness. He found himself naturally taking command of the local resistance and planning operations with a strategic insight that surprised even him. The Great Uprising began at exactly the same moment on all 7 target worlds. Enhanced humans used abilities the Kethvar couldn't understand or counter to seize control of key installations. Transport ships were captured, communication centers were taken, and garrison compounds were overwhelmed by slaves who fought with superhuman coordination. Amy's computer infiltration skills allowed the resistance to turn the alien surveillance network against itself. She reprogrammed monitoring systems to show false data, while resistance fighters moved freely through areas that should have been under complete observation. The Kethvar found themselves blind in their own facilities. Danny led a squadron of captured alien fighters in an attack on the orbital defense platforms above Proxima Centauri b. His enhanced piloting abilities allowed him to outmaneuver automated defense systems that were designed to be impossible to defeat. Within hours, the resistance controlled local space around their most important base. Tony and a team of liberated scientists used their energy manipulation powers to disable the neural implant production facility on Kepler 442b. They didn't just destroy the equipment but somehow corrupted the programming so that any new implants would enhance human abilities instead of suppressing them. The Kethvar's most important tool of control had been turned into a weapon against them, the alien. Response was swift but confused. Garrison commanders called for reinforcements, but their communication systems kept failing at crucial moments. Automated defense systems turned on their own forces after being reprogrammed by human infiltrators. The empire that had conquered 17 star systems found itself losing control of its newest acquisitions. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of a captured Kethvar battleship and studied star charts that showed the location of the alien homeworld. His enhanced tactical awareness told him that the key to human freedom lay not in holding the worlds they had liberated, but in striking at the heart of enemy power. The resistance had grown from scattered survivors hiding in ruins to a coordinated military force that controlled significant territory across multiple star systems. More importantly, they had evolved beyond normal human limitations and developed abilities that made them more than a match for their former captors. Sam Rodriguez received a message from Maria Santos confirming that the time had come for the final phase of the Liberation War. The humans had learned everything they could from captured alien technology, and their enhanced abilities were strong enough to challenge the Kethvar Empire directly. The species that had tried to enslave humanity was about to discover what they had truly awakened. The neural implants that were supposed to guarantee permanent obedience had instead created something the galaxy had never seen before. Humanity had been forged in the fires of oppression into a force that could challenge any enemy. The Kethvar were about to learn the price of trying to chain a species that refused to be broken. The combined human fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kethvar home system, and Jake Morrison felt his enhanced tactical awareness immediately start processing the massive defensive network that protected their destination. Keth Prime hung in space like a jewel surrounded by automated defense platforms, battle stations, and patrol fleets that had protected the alien homeworld for thousands of years. Admiral Lisa Carter stood beside Jake on the bridge of the flagship, Liberty, and studied the sensor readings that her science team was gathering. Her liberation 3 months ago had enhanced her already brilliant scientific mind to levels that seemed impossible. She could understand alien technology intuitively and see weaknesses in their designs that normal human analysis would have missed completely. The Terran Liberation Navy consisted of 200 captured Kethvar ships that had been modified with human enhancements and operated by crews whose abilities went far beyond normal limits. Amy Parker had designed new interface systems that allowed liberated humans to control alien technology, as if it were an extension of their own bodies. Danny Clark led the fighter squadrons from his command ship and felt his enhanced spatial awareness, mapping every defensive position in the star system. The automated systems protecting Keth Prime were impressive, but they followed predictable patterns that his tactical intuition could exploit. More importantly, he could sense something that the aliens themselves didn't realize about their own defenses. Maria Santos coordinated intelligence operations from her stealth ship and used her enhanced pattern recognition to analyze communication, intercepts from the planet below. What she discovered was shocking even to humans who had learned to expect the unexpected from their former captors. The Kethvar population had become completely dependent on slave labor and automated systems. The alien civilization had been conquering other species for so long that they had forgotten how to innovate or adapt to new challenges. Their technology was advanced, but it hadn't improved significantly in hundreds of years. They had become a static empire that relied on overwhelming force rather than tactical flexibility. Tony Mitchell and his team of enhanced scientists had studied captured Kethvar technology for months and found disturbing patterns in its design. The aliens built their systems to last forever and resist any possible attack. But they never considered the possibility of enemies who could understand and reprogram their equipment from within. The first phase of the assault began when Amy's computer infiltration specialists accessed the outer defense network through captured communication codes. Instead of trying to destroy the automated platforms, they reprogrammed them to create gaps in coverage that the human fleet could exploit. The Kethvar watched in confusion as their own defenses began behaving erratically. Jake led the main battle, fleet through the holes in the defense network while Danny's fighters dealt with patrol ships that moved to intercept them. The alien pilots flew with mechanical precision, but couldn't adapt when human tactics kept changing in unpredictable ways. Enhanced human reflexes and intuition proved superior to programmed responses. Lisa's science ships deployed a weapon that the Kethvar had never seen before. Instead of trying to destroy enemy vessels with brute force, they used precisely targeted energy pulses to disable specific systems. Alien ships found their weapons offline, their engines failing, and their life support systems malfunctioning all at once. The Kethvar High Command, on the planet's surface, ordered their reserve fleets to launch, but discovered that their automated shipyards had been infiltrated by human hackers. New vessels rolled off the production lines with hidden programming that made them turn on their own forces as soon as they entered combat. The Empire's greatest strength had become a critical vulnerability. Sam Rodriguez commanded the ground invasion force that landed on Keth Prime after the orbital defenses had been neutralized. His enhanced tactical awareness allowed him to coordinate attacks across an entire continent, while his troops used abilities that the alien defenders couldn't understand or counter. The Kethvar military had impressive equipment and strong defensive positions, but they had grown soft after centuries of easy conquests. They expected their enemies to attack directly using conventional tactics, and were completely unprepared for humans who could infiltrate their systems, predict their movements, and coordinate attacks with superhuman precision. Amy established communication, links with the slave populations on Keth Prime, and discovered something that changed everything about the invasion. The aliens had brought millions of humans to their homeworld to serve as domestic workers and technicians. These slaves could be liberated and turned into an army behind enemy lines. The liberation of humans on Keth Prime proceeded rapidly as Amy's teams used portable devices to remove neural implants and awaken enhanced abilities in the slave population. Within hours, the aliens found themselves dealing with coordinated uprisings in every major city, while their military forces were engaged with the invasion fleet in orbit. Tony's energy manipulation abilities proved devastating against Kethvar infrastructure. He could overload power grids, collapse communication networks, and disable transportation systems across vast areas. The alien civilization that depended on automated systems found itself paralyzed as their technology turned against them. The psychological impact of the invasion was as important as the military victory. The Kethvar had never faced an enemy that could match their technology and exceed their tactical abilities. Reports from across the Empire told of slave uprisings, coordinated attacks, and the systematic destruction of Imperial control. Danny's fighter squadrons penetrated the atmosphere of Keth Prime and began precision strikes on government buildings and military installations. The aliens had built massive cities that were beautiful, but completely vulnerable to attack because they had never expected to defend their homeworld against a serious invasion. Maria Santos intercepted communications between Kethvar leaders and realized that the Empire was collapsing faster than anyone had expected. Regional governors were reporting complete loss of control, while military commanders begged for reinforcements that didn't exist. The species that had conquered 17 star systems was falling apart when faced with determined resistance. Jake coordinated the final assault on the Imperial Palace from orbit, while Sam's ground forces surrounded the massive complex. The enhanced humans moved with precision and coordination that made them seem like a single organism, working toward a common goal. The Kethvar defenders were brave, but they couldn't match abilities that bordered on telepathic communication. High Commander Zexthul broadcast a surrender message from his throne room as human forces breached the palace walls. The alien leader who had once demanded Earth submission now begged for mercy from the species he had tried to enslave. The broadcast went out across the galaxy and marked the end of the Kethvar Empire. Lisa accepted the formal surrender aboard the Liberty while Jake and his officers watched from the bridge. The documents were signed with hands that shook as Kethvar leaders realized the full extent of their defeat. They had lost not just a war, but their entire way of life. The Terran. Liberation Navy found itself in control of the most powerful star system in their region of the galaxy. More importantly, they had proven that enhanced humanity could defeat any enemy through superior tactics, adaptive thinking, and the kind of determination that could only come from a species that had been pushed to its limits and refused to break. Humans who had been loaded onto slave ships just 7 years ago now stood as conquerors on the homeworld of their former oppressors. The neural implants, meant to guarantee eternal servitude, had instead created a species capable of challenging the greatest empire in known space. The Kethvar had learned too late that some chains only make the prisoner stronger. Sam Rodriguez walked through the grand entrance hall of what had once been the Imperial Palace on Keth Prime, and smiled at the groups of visitors from dozens of different worlds who came to see the Museum of Human Resilience. 25 years had passed since the Liberation War ended, and the former mining slave now served as director of the galaxy's most popular historical site. The morning tour group included species from across the local star systems, including several young Kethvar who had grown up in the new era of galactic cooperation. Sam began his presentation in the same throne room where High Commander Zexthol had once planned the conquest of Earth and where he had later signed the documents of surrender. The visitors listened with fascination as Sam explained how humanity had been captured, enslaved, and scattered across 12 worlds to serve the Kethvar Empire. He showed them artifacts from the invasion, including neural implants that had been meant to guarantee permanent obedience. Many guests found it hard to believe that such small devices had been intended to control the minds of an entire species. Amy Parker arrived for the afternoon technical demonstration, wearing the simple blue uniform that all museum staff wore regardless of their former status in the Liberation War. Her enhanced abilities had only grown stronger over the years, and she could still interface directly with alien technology, though now she used these skills for education rather than warfare. The museum's most popular exhibit was the Hall of Liberation, where visitors could see actual footage of the resistance operations that had freed humanity from slavery. Amy explained how the neural implants had been turned against their creators, and how enhanced humans had learned to use Kethvar technology better than the aliens themselves. Dr. Helen Brooks now served as the museum's chief scientist and had spent decades studying the long-term effects of the liberation process. Her research showed that enhanced humans continued to develop new abilities throughout their lives, though the changes were gradual and always beneficial. The species that had been forced to evolve under pressure had gained capabilities that seemed almost magical to outside observers. The former Kethvar population of their homeworld had adapted surprisingly well to their new circumstances. Many worked as museum guides, translators, and maintenance staff, taking pride in preserving the story of humanity's triumph. The younger generation especially seemed to understand that their ancestors had made terrible mistakes and were determined to build a better future. Danny Clark had retired from military service 10 years ago and now taught piloting techniques at the Galactic Flight Academy that had been built in the former Imperial military complex. His enhanced spatial awareness made him an exceptional instructor, and students from across the galaxy came to learn from the human who had outflown automated defense systems that were supposed to be unbeatable. The museum's education center was housed in what had once been the Kethvar High Command building, and featured interactive displays that let visitors experience simulated versions of the Liberation War. The most popular simulation was the final Battle for Keth Prime, where participants could take the roles of enhanced humans using abilities that normal beings could barely imagine. Karen Matthews now served as Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council and visited the museum regularly to speak with students and researchers. Her transformation from resistance leader to diplomat showed how humans had learned to use their enhanced abilities for building rather than just fighting. The species that had been forged in war had chosen to become leaders in peace. Maria Santos worked as the museum's head archivist and had collected oral histories from thousands of Liberation War veterans. Her enhanced pattern recognition abilities allowed her to identify connections and themes across vast amounts of testimony, creating a comprehensive record of humanity's greatest trial and triumph. The museum's research wing was led by Tony Mitchell, who continued to study the energy manipulation abilities that many enhanced humans had developed. His work had led to breakthroughs in power generation and space propulsion that benefited every species in the region. The former slave had become one of the galaxy's most respected scientists. Jake Morrison had retired to a quiet life on Earth, but his tactical innovations were still taught at military academies across human space. The enhanced awareness that had helped him coordinate fleets in battle now served him well as a strategic advisor to the Galactic Council whenever conflicts arose between member species. Lisa Carter served as director of the Galactic Technology Exchange, where enhanced humans shared their unique abilities with other species who wanted to improve their own societies. The neural enhancement technology that had once been used for oppression was now helping civilizations across the galaxy reach their full potential. The museum's most moving exhibit was the Memorial Hall, where the names of every human who had died during the invasion and occupation were carved into walls of black stone. Visitors often stood silently reading the names and trying to understand the scale of suffering that had been endured before liberation came. Sam led his tour group to the final exhibit, which was located in Zexthol's former private chambers. A simple recording device played the alien commander's surrender speech on continuous loop, while holographic displays showed the collapse of the Kethvar Empire across 17 star systems. The exhibit's centerpiece was a memorial plaque that Jake Morrison had personally designed before his retirement. The inscription was written in both human languages and the scripts of every species that had been enslaved by the Kethvar Empire. It read simply that those who had tried to break human spirits and chain human bodies had instead forged them into something they could never defeat. Young Kethvar visitors often asked Sam how their species could make up for the suffering they had caused. He always gave the same answer, that true redemption came not from guilt about the past, but from working to build a better future for all species. The museum itself was proof that former enemies could become partners in creating something greater than either could achieve alone. The afternoon concluded with a ceremony in the museum's central courtyard, where representatives from dozens of worlds placed flowers at the feet of a statue depicting an ordinary human breaking free from chains. The statue had no face, because it was meant to represent every person who had ever refused to accept slavery as their destiny. As the visitors departed, Sam walked through the empty halls of the former imperial palace and reflected on how completely the world had changed. The species that had once ruled through fear and oppression now worked quietly as caretakers of their former slaves' greatest victory. The museum stood as proof that no chains were strong enough to hold a people who refused to give up their freedom. The lights dimmed automatically as evening fell on Keth Prime, and the Museum of Human Resilience settled into quiet rest. Tomorrow would bring new visitors, new students, and new opportunities to share the story of humanity's journey, from slavery to liberation. The former empire's greatest legacy was not the worlds it had conquered, but the museum that celebrated the indomitable spirit of those who had refused to be conquered.